In the book, I frame it around what I call functional coherence, which I define this way. Functional coherence refers to the hierarchical arrangement of parts needed for anything to produce a high-level function, each part contributing in a coordinated way to the whole.
This is just another way of talking about irreducible complexity, which was debunked 12 ways from Sunday years ago. Even Darwin addressed arguments like it in some of the later editions of The Origin of Species. The error that this idea makes is assuming that if something is missing parts necessary to perform a high-level function, then it can't perform any advantageous function. Proponents of irreducible complexity infer that mechanisms that perform such functions therefore cannot evolve by gradual steps. What proponents of this idea don't seem to understand is that while a complex mechanism may not be able to perform the function it performs if one part is missing, it can often still perform other advantageous functions, sometimes entirely different functions. These functions can be so different and counterintuitive that we ought to treat any claims about the irreducible complexity of any physiological system with extreme skepticism.
Now that's a lot of words, but it's a very familiar idea because virtually everything that we look at and say, wow, that's an invention, humans made that and they made it for a purpose. They all have a high-level purpose and they all have lots and lots of parts, and the parts are not just thrown together willy-nilly, they are crafted in order to perform specific sub-functions in order for all these sub-functions to come together to produce the top-level function. This is very familiar. It's true of nearly everything. It's true of everything that we view as an invention. It's true of the violin. There wouldn't be a part here that's not contributing to the high-level function.
Well, first of all, that's not true. Many musical instruments have parts that are decorative rather than functional. Secondly, the fact that all the parts contribute to a function does not mean that this function is the only function to which they can contribute.
Here is a quote from Dawkins' book. However many ways there may be of being alive, it is certain that there are vastly more ways of being dead, or rather not alive. You may throw cells together at random over and over again for billions of years, and not once will you get a conglomeration that flies or swims or burrows or runs or does anything, even badly, that could remotely be construed as working to keep itself alive.
I'm not sure what Dawkins means by random here. The first multicellular organisms were comprised of colonies of single-celled organisms. They weren't thrown together randomly in the sense that they just popped into existence out of nowhere. There was a physical reason why each of those cells was there. However, the configurations they formed were largely chaotic. Despite the chaos, if there are lots of cells that have the properties they need to have in order to form a multicellular organism, I see no reason to think it's improbable that such an organism would emerge from that chaos. Tetrabaena socialis is a form of algae that consists of only 4 cells. If an organism can be made out of just 4 cells, I don't see any reason to think that it would be improbable for such an organism to develop from cells being thrown together randomly.
Once we're in the category of beings who create ourselves, who not create ourselves, but we ourselves create things, we are makers, we are inventors, it is really a snap to look at something. I mean, you can lay these things out. Pile of sand? No. A clock? Yes. I mean, it's not hard at all.
But if you're a theist, you believe that both the clock and the pile of sand were designed. You can't actually give any example of an undesigned thing. You can't distinguish between things that show signs of design and things that don't because you think literally everything is the product of the mind of a god or the mind of a person. Thanks again so much to everyone who supports me on Patreon.